Viewers, welcome to Talk Show Promise Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement. Today our guest is Mr. Mofizur Rahman, Managing Director of NOVO Air. Well, Mr. Mofizur Rahman, how are you?
Fine, thank you. And thanks for inviting me for the talk show.
Well, we are very much interested to know about the airlines and how we doing the business. Usually, we feel that airline business is very royal business indeed. What are the factors that pushed you to get involved in the business, like aviation?
Well, basically I was a aviator, Air Force pilot. So the aviation and the airline, that was inbuilt perhaps in my bloodstream. So when I took the retirement from Air Force, a couple of our friends, that we thought that we need to have an airline. Why is that? Because particularly in our domestic sector, the service standard was not at par as the demand of the passengers. There are certain requirements, certain expectations that a passenger has from the airline while he travels. When it was there in the international flight, but domestic flights were, the passengers were highly deprived of. And it was kind of driven by the airline, whatever they used to provide, and the passengers were bound to accept that. And we just wanted to have a significant paradigm shift from that perspective, that we have an airline which will be of international standard and much talked about, and passengers are satisfied as per their requirement, that when they travel, they have the comfort, they have the safety, and they have their total satisfaction of traveling in the domestic sector. So our aim was primarily to have a domestic airline that is catered to the needs of the domestic airline.
We understand from experience and statistics that so many airlines was born, and in course of time they got into bankruptcy. Why this happened?
Okay, I will take this perspective to the international. When the deregulation came in, usually till 1970s, the aviation was into the hands of the governments in every country. So it was end of 1960s and beginning of 70s, gradually started to open up to the private. And when the private sector came in, so if we look at the Europe, if we look at America, a lot of airlines came in and went to bankruptcy. And perhaps it is a very nature of the business itself. But when the things matured, now it is not expected that there will be so much of the failure of the airline. Now, our journey in our country as a private sector, it is almost coming 30 years. 3 decades is not a short time. By now, our industry should have been rather, in a firm footing, that there will be failure, every business has a failure, but not at the scale that what we have in our country. There were 12 private sector, I will say, the passenger airline. Out of that, 8 went into bankruptcy.
How many airlines at this very moment in private sector in Bangladesh?
Right now, NOVO Air is there. We are established in 2013, January 2013. Then came US Bangla in 2014 July, almost one year and a half after we came in. And just last year, November, I believe, the Airsta came in. So right now, 3 airlines are operating. And in the course of time, there were many other very promising airlines, I would say, Regent Airways, GMG, and they just folded. And if we think nationally that we have a robust aviation sector, airline sector, we need to decipher the causes that why there were so many failures in the airline, and to sustain this sector, what we need to do.
As we understand, there are a number of areas in the business. You say the charter, you say the cargo, and the scheduled. To what are the percentages of the movement? The passenger scheduled business in your analysis?
Well, so our aviation industry, it is we are mostly the scheduled operation. If we talk about the charter, that is in a fractional number. There is not much of charter flight or unscheduled flights, and our percentage of cargo is also very limited. Our we are, I guess, it's about 8th growing cargo market in the world, but it is under whole capture of the foreign carriers. Our national carrier Biman doesn't have the dedicated freighter, and it is not in our capacity to have the dedicated freighter, to be very honest. So to tap that very big chunk of the growing cargo market, we definitely need to support. We need to get the support, institutional support from the government, so that the whole business is not taken by the foreign carriers. And to talk about the charter business, which is the part of the general aviation, we are when we talk about that, we have to think about supporting that general aviation. Our rules and regulation that is formulated by the civil aviation, it is nowhere supportive for the development of the general aviation, which usually conducts the charter flights. So Civil Aviation Authority need to look into that prospect. It's not only for the growth of the charter business, because that from the charter flight, the airline gets the usually the pilot input. They are trained in the general aviation and then they come to the airline, usually in Europe and America. But in our country, in case the raw hands, those who are just got the commercial pilot license, they just directly get on the airline without any experience in between. So to have a balanced aviation and the airline all sector, we need to address this general aviation by rules and regulation. We need to support the cargo growth. I think our national carrier Biman should go ahead with that. Now I would say 95% cargo market belongs to the foreign carriers. We need to get hold of some percentage of that business. And here I would like to say one area that we have not been addressing. We have a very flourishing helicopter industry. Now there are as many as 10 helicopter operators. In public perception, there is, okay, that's the toy for the rich people, that they can go here and there with that. But that concept is absolutely wrong, I would say. This helicopter service is providing an enormous service to the nation in terms of taking the buyers. So a lot of foreign buyers are coming in the airport, hopping into the helicopter, going to the industry, giving billion-dollar order and returning back from the airport.
Well, we'll go for a short break and come to you again. Viewers, we are going for a short break and come to you very soon. Thank you. We are back again and we are having talks with Mr. Mofizur Rahman, Managing Director of NOVO. Mr. Mofiz, we are having talks on helicopters. Fantastic area indeed. And what are your experiences about the future and present state of being of helicopters in Bangladesh?
To my perspective, helicopter is currently providing an enormous service to the nation. In terms of facilitating business, say for example, a man stays in Dhaka, an industrialist, his factory is in Trishal or somewhere, or any place of the country. He just takes a ride by the helicopter, goes to the industry, comes back at the end of the day. And that's happening day in, day out for many of the businesses. We have our majority export is the garment sector. Earlier, the buyer used to call our manufacturers either to Bangkok or Singapore or Dubai. They used to have the business stock there, and most of the time when business materializes or not, because the buyer doesn't have the practical experience of what he's going to buy. Now, this helicopter is supporting that buyer who is coming to the airport, straight away hopping onto the helicopter, going to the factory, seeing himself the products, and instantly he is giving the buying decision. So billions of dollars of order that is being materialized through that way. So I would say that this is a tremendous contribution to the national economy. Let's not forget that most of the people, those are falling ill, severely ill, heart attack or anything, they are being taken by the helicopter directly onto the airport.
Shortening the time also.
And the time is very essential to save a life. So they can. We know about our road infrastructure. A sick man cannot travel that long way. On the way, he will be dying. But they are being taken by the helicopter, bringing to the capital, and then taken to the hospital. And here I would say that the patient can be directly taken on to the hospital. Against that, now they are being taken first in the airport, then again ambulance taking the time. Here also, I was talking about the policy. The policy doesn't support landing onto the top of a building. So that policy is under formulation for last 3-4 years. A simple policy that takes 3-4 years. So if we, that is the similar situation for any other sector of the aviation. We are just bogged down on the policy support areas. So in totality, we need to address these policy areas, that what will facilitate the growth of the sector. Ultimately, this is for the benefit of the nation.
Well, now drawing attention to the new area. At this very moment, the business in the area of civil aviation, in particular the aviation business, private sector, and I think you are facing problems regarding the passengers. It is getting reduced day by day. What are the reasons?
Here I would segregate two timelines. One is pre-COVID, one is post-COVID. The pre-COVID, I would say from 2010 onwards, we had double-digit growth year-on-year basis. Anything between 10, 12. There were even some year it was 17% growth. And that's a huge growth if we take to the international standard. But that growth faced tremendous hurdles in 2020 and 21 because of the COVID. It's understandable. And when the market was just reviving back from September of 2021, when we come in 2022 February and the Ukraine war breaks out, there is all of a sudden there is a tremendous fall in the passenger demand. The reason is multiple. It was I would say, the economic factor that people did not have the surplus income to travel by air. So naturally, they who all needed to travel, they travel by road. If we look at the picture of pre-COVID, usually whether it is Saidpur or Chittagong, Cox's Bazar is always a holiday travel. There are significant number of family travels by air. In contrast, now we don't see any family traveling by air. So here the question is the affordability. Though the fare remained the same, the cost of operation doubled, the fuel price doubled, but the domestic fare is constant, rather reduced. And that growth picture has gone into negative regime by opening of the Padma bridge. So people doesn't need to travel by air anymore to Barisal and Jessore. That Barisal and Jessore combinedly accounted for about 30% of our domestic market. Now that has reduced to even 5%. So there is a huge demand shortfall there, but the capacity is already there. Similar thing happened for Chittagong also. It's significantly reduced because going to the Chittagong airport from the city, it takes very long time due to the traffic. Again, from airport to Dhaka city, again it takes a very long time. So people just take a 5-hour journey by road and comes to Dhaka. So that also has softened the demand. And I think if there are no corrective actions or the appropriate steps, this domestic will continue to reduce, but international will remain stronger than what it had been.
In that case, what are the present initiative you have taken regarding outside Bangladesh flights? I mean, network around South Asia or Southeast Asia or beyond that?
Okay. As I said in the beginning, that our aim was to have a strong domestic presence. Obviously, international, the regional network was definitely in our mind, but our prime focus was the domestic. Now, having this shrinking domestic market, I think that yes, we need to have the presence in the regional market. We are working on to our plan to connect Southeast Asia like Singapore, Malaysia, Bangkok, and in the Far East there are some possible destinations that we will be examining, and Middle East is a proven destination that we have. So we are planning to extend our network regionally.
What about NOVO Air specifically?
If we talk about specific to NOVO Air, before that I was talking, it is basically the NOVO Air plan. So US Bangla is already in the regional market very strongly, and they are also expanding, and we are also planning to go on to the regional market, targeting our core passenger area, that is Southeast Asia, Middle East and Far East, like some of the destinations in China. That's what we are working for.
And you believe that if there are available opportunities and flights, you may have enough scopes to expand. It's true. Like in comparison to the competition inside and outside.
Every business will have competition. In aviation, there is it has a very international set, that wherever you go, you have a reciprocal international competitor, and those competitors are very big. Let's name a few. From Singapore is a Singapore Airlines. From Malaysia, there are as many as 3 airlines coming. Malaysian Airlines, Marindu, AirAsia, all giants.
Giants.
From Thailand, Thai Air as well as Thai Lion Air operating to Dhaka. If you look at the West, the Middle Eastern carriers are called world giants. If we talk about Emirates, we talk about Qatar, we talk about Saudi, and we talk about Turkish. This is a world standard, and they are also coming. So it is not that easy to sustain at that level, but I am sure there are ways that you can sustain even with the giants.
Thank you. Thank you. We are going for a short break again. I will come back again to you. Viewers, we are going for a short break and come to again very soon. Thank you. Viewers, back again, and we are having talks with Mr. Mofizur Rahman, Managing Director of NOVO Air. Mr. Mofizur Rahman, we are having talks on so many things, especially in global perspective. And apart from all these things, if we jump to domestic problems again, we understand that we need the hangars for any aircraft, for parking hangar. What are the present state of being about hangars in Bangladesh?
Okay, the hangar is just part of the aviation infrastructure facility. It is not everything. We did have a very severe shortage of hangar in the past, but recently civil aviation has constructed a number of hangars. So that is no more a problem. But the problem is usually the airlines or the users, they make the hangar. So when civil aviation made the hangar, they did not build the hangar as per the specification or the need of the airline. Every hangar has its specific needs to develop. So most of the needs are not there in the current hangar. And besides, the rental of the hangar is very high. Airline cannot sustain with that kind of high rental of the hangar. Now, going back to the main question of the infrastructure, yes, our country inherited mostly the British era airfields and the terminal and things like that since then. And some of the infrastructure were from Pakistan period. But I would say last 5-6 years, there is tremendous investment in the development of infrastructure. And you'll be surprised to know the currently total number of projects going on in the aviation sector. Government has given the money in free hand. In total, it is more than the Padma Bridge construction cost. That is, there are as many as 14 projects undergoing under Civil Aviation Authority. Just to name a few, third terminal in Dhaka Airport, expansion of Sylhet Airport, modernization of Chittagong, making the Cox's Bazar International Airport, extending the runway of Cox's Bazar, Jessore Terminal, Sayeedpur Terminal, expansion of Borisal. So there are a lot of projects that's going on. And here I get encouraged. But again, there are some points here that when this public infrastructure are taken, usually what we have seen in other countries, when Singapore built their port terminal, they surveyed to the user for long 2 years that what they expect in their future terminal. Australia will be building a second airport near Sydney. So they are constantly engaged with the stakeholders and the public that what kind of airport they want. In our country, it is absolutely absent that stakeholders' participation, stakeholder consultation is not at all taken. As a result, we spend more, but we have a below the expectation output.
Why all of these things are taking place here in Bangladesh? What is your understanding?
Well, our Honorable Prime Minister has a vision of making Bangladesh as a regional aviation hub. As part of that, this infrastructure development is needed. Somewhere the runway is just 5,000, which is not sufficient for a modern aircraft to land and take off. So that is being extended. As I said, that we did have the Pakistan time terminal infrastructure where the passengers will move. That 50 years back terminal cannot handle today's passenger number. So the terminals are being extended. So it has altogether the aircraft management facilities, air traffic control facilities. So it's a whole lot of things that involves when we talk about the airport aviation infrastructure. So we need to develop all together. And in Dhaka, we need badly another runway. It's a single runway is certainly will not serve our purpose when we have our third
runway. Where it should be located, because the space of present S.A.Channel airport limited. And how can you think of another runway, and where should it be?
Okay. So we did a mistake, I would say. As I said, that there is no consultative approach here. Initially, when the third terminal project was there, it was with another runway. But for some reason or fund constraint, we excluded the runway and only went for the terminal. But we have to understand the terminal will provide the passenger facilities. But to address or handle the extra airplanes, you need the surface movement area.
Runway.
You need the runway. If it is not there, many times you will find that the Dhaka airport is stopped operation for one aircraft has landed with the emergency and the aircraft is stuck up in there.
Just to draw your attention, very important area. You are expanding terminal without having further runway. That means congestion of so many passengers, and I mean there is no runway. And how can this gap can be bridged?
Going a little back to your previous question, still now, if we wish, we can have a parallel runway. Earlier we could have an independent runway, but now we have to have a dependent runway, one runway for landing, one for takeoff. But earlier, when it was planned, you could have simultaneous landing and simultaneous takeoff. But now it will be limited to one runway for takeoff, one for landing.
Is it possible here?
Yes, it is very much possible.
You explain it, please, because viewers are listening to your talks, and they are very much optimistic of listening to all these things, whether possible or not, and how.
It is absolutely possible. Let me give you some example. Now, with the existing runway, with reasonable distance, you can build another runway. If we go across the border, Calcutta, there are 2 runways, and distance between 2 runways is just equal what we have now, if we develop now. The Frankfurt has 2 parallel runway, and it is very tightly spaced. Earlier, it was needed to have a very big separation. Now the instrument for the landings, those are so precision that you can reduce the distance between the 2 runways. So it is very much possible to do that, and it is absolutely essential. Right now, we have in departure sequence, we have anything between 30 to 40 minutes hold on the taxi holder. We have about, again, 25 to 30 minutes in the arrival sequence. An aircraft is holding, burning fuel up in the air to make a landing. Now, just imagine when third terminal will be open, the number of passengers will double. But do we have adequate runway, taxiway to support that movement?
I mean for landing.
Yes. To do that, it is absolutely essential that we have a parallel runway.
I think you have understanding and talks with the Civil Aviation Authority or the government, because since you are in this field, do you sense any positive approach from them?
I am with the civil aviation at least from 2007 and with the airline from 2013. So we have a natural resistance from bureaucracy. They don't want to hear to the industry. It is common everywhere. But in case of current civil aviation, both ministry and the Civil Aviation Authority, we are communicating, and I think they understand what we speak, and they tend to do as we say, but still that bureaucratic hurdles that remains, but it is much more communicative now.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mofizur Rahman. You have highlighted, I think, on each and every point, and we talked so many things from you. And we are very happy to learn so many things from you, and very soon we will meet you again on the same dais, on the same chair. And thank you.
Thank you so much for calling me for this program.
Well, viewers, we are having talks with Mr. Mofizur Rahman, Managing Director of NOVO Air. He touched on almost everything about civil aviation, business, aviation problems, landing, I mean, the way that they are having behavior and approach from the government, and the percentage of passengers are getting reduced because of the breeze and development on the surface. All are the reflection of the reality. And I think we talked to him about all these things, and he raised the issues, so many issues, so many problems, and forecasting so many things. What he said, we just pass to you. Whether, how you evaluate this, that is up to you. And thank you very much. We'll meet you again very soon.